So tonight's topic, the first of the forums, is how can I love my fellow human being when he or she doesn't believe the same things I do?
And I love this topic, how can I love my fellow human beings when they don't believe the same thing as I do? Well, it's very difficult. But it reminds me of an old story. Once there was a Shaivite temple, a temple to Shiva, and a few Shaivite devotees came, and finally the trustees met, and they said, we're not having many people in the temple, not like this temple. So I said, well, what should we do? Let's become a Vaishnava temple. So they took out the Shiva Lingam, they put in Radha Krishna, became a Vaishnava temple. So the Shaivites stopped coming, and the Vaishnavas came, but they were only a few in that town, not like Melbourne. And after a while, the trustees met again, and they said, we haven't really improved the situation, what shall we do? They said, let's become a mosque. All right, so they became a mosque. They took all the images out, and all the Hindus stopped coming, and a few Muslims came. So they met after some time, and they said, well, this isn't improving it much. What else can we do? We can become a church. And so they became a Christian church. The Muslims stopped coming. A few Christians came, and they met again after a year and said, look, we haven't solved the problem. And one of the trustees was a very smart man. He said, I know what we can do. We can become a pub. So they became a pub, and then the Christians came, the Hindus came, the Muslims came, the atheists came, everybody came. So I like that story very much for various reasons. But one is the question arises, why should religion create separation? Religion is meant to worship God, who is pure love. The very essence of God is love. But the history of religious differences is not a pretty one. In religion, the first thing should be the human heart. That should be number one. The Sufi saint said, you can break a temple, you can break a mosque, but you should never break the human heart, because it is the human heart that is the temple of the living God. And we've been willing to sacrifice the human heart on the altar of religious doctrine. And we simply have to stop it. And I'm an optimist, and I believe that we will. When you see the self, the Atman, the soul, within every person, you do not even notice differences of belief. I'm convinced that there is an evolutionary movement, a movement of consciousness. And I believe there's a divine plan, and humanity is moving from darkness into light. Perhaps we're nearing the end of the Kali Yuga. So what do I mean by evolution? I mean that we're moving from being insular, narrow, little groups with contracted consciousness to having a broader, more tolerant understanding. It's not only that higher wisdom is being beamed down from Devaloka, but these manifestations are also the result of progress that we've made technologically. Progress in communication, the media, the internet. We have Lord Google, the omniscient deity. There's an information explosion. We have exponentially greater understanding of other peoples and cultures, and through that understanding we gain sympathy. We're moving from a deep but narrow stance to a deep and broad stance. And one of the symptoms is the birth of the interreligious dialogue, the Interfaith movement. I never heard of it until a few years ago. Even the fact that I'm standing here speaking at the Krishna temple is evidence of what I'm talking about. When I began my sadhana many years ago, Vaishnavas and Shaivites never spoke to each other. Now I can't bear very long to go without hearing the Maha Mantra. Our programs with the Hare Krishna has been fabulous. And I think that we gave something to each other, to both traditions. In 2009, we had the Parliament of World Religions here in Melbourne. Some of you were there. Everywhere in the modern religious landscape, you see interfaith gatherings, interreligious dialogue. It's a new concept. Traditionally, religions fought each other. Even within religions, the different sects fought each other. Something is in the air. Something is happening. Is it true or not?
That's true.
It's in the air. We're beginning to understand what is meant by Sanatana Dharma, the universal religion. The Hindus have always known about this. God is one. Humanity is one. People are at different levels of evolution. They relate to different teachings and different approaches, and these different approaches are all valid in their own place, in their own way to certain people. And this is the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of humanity. We're moving towards greater oneness, greater knowledge of each other, and greater tolerance of differences. Most religious differences are based on rather foolish issues. Recently, I found out that there's a movie of Gulliver's Travels out. And I haven't seen it, but when I read Gulliver as a kid, no, actually in college, I remember that in one of the lands Gulliver traveled, I don't know if this is in the movie, there were two factions. One of them believed that soft-boiled eggs should be opened on the big end, and the other believed that soft-boiled eggs should be opened on the small end. They were known as big Indians and small Indians. Has anybody seen this movie? Huh? I wonder if it's in there. I don't know. Then they went to war over it. Of course, here at the temple, this problem doesn't arise because we don't eat eggs. But here's my advice on the topic. If you agree with someone, enjoy that agreement completely. It's natural to feel an affinity and love for people in your family or your group. But if you find you disagree with someone, it's okay to try to convince them of your point of view. But if you start to feel a sick feeling in your stomach area, take that as a sign that you should quit that effort. Then you should switch your attention from the other person's beliefs to the fact that they are the beautiful handiwork of the divine, and see God in them, and begin to love them rather than argue with them. And I'll tell you a secret, even if you're in total agreement with someone philosophically, there may come a moment, nay, there will come a moment when you will discover that you disagree about something. In my own life, I've discovered that human beings have the maddening habit of not believing everything I say. It's been very hard for me to live with and adjust to. So this is the evolution of consciousness. Can we love people who believe something different? Yes, of course we can. But it represents a new benchmark for humanity. Our emotions belong to our reptilian and animal past. We have to work at it. We have to understand it. We have to be willing to grow. God's demand is that we accept this growth and learn to live with differences and accept them. Evolution is in the direction of a wiser, broader, more tolerant, more inclusive story. This is a new narrative for our time. Indeed, this new narrative is godlike in its love, in its generosity of spirit, and in its universality. And I can feel it in the air today. So thank you very much.
And he gets this little person, he sits this little person on his lap, you know, like if Swami was Jesus, I'd be sort of sitting here.